What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. I'm Noah Schreckbein, joined always by my main man, Jacob Punturi. Find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talker. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. The Pittsburgh Steelers yesterday. Well, what a day it was. The blockbuster trade between the black and gold and the Miami Dolphins sends Minkah Fitzpatrick back down to the AFC East, while Jalen Ramsey and Jonnu Smith make their way to the city of Pittsburgh. We're diving into all of it, what it means for the Pittsburgh Steelers, how all in after an all-in episode are they right now? Where is Jalen going to play? What is their plan for Jonnu Smith? Who can they still add to this team? And at the end of the day, why is there so much noise right now about trading TJ Watt? We're diving into all that plus more. It's a rainy one, but who cares? It's a beautiful one here in the Berg. How you feeling, my friend?
I am feeling good. I'm coming to you from a local basement in the Pittsburgh area, where myself and a local outdoor made indoor cat named Boo have taken residence in this basement. So we're having a good time, man. Having a good time. But yeah, I am feeling good. I can't believe that as soon as we got off of the pod yesterday, the biggest news of the offseason hit. And it was a shame that I couldn't follow up with you to talk more about it. But boy, oh boy, am I happy to be chatting with you now.
Yeah, it was an absolutely wild time. Me and you literally got off. We were planning our day, essentially, in the Slack channel. And then I'm not going to lie to you. I walked downstairs to get a cup of coffee. I came upstairs, and all I saw was a tweet sent from you from Jalen Ramsey. And I went, holy shit, what is happening right now? What is this? Here it is. Hate to be the guy, okay? And we'll start here, and then I won't brag about this ever again, I promise. Everybody and their mother told me I was crazy, that the Pittsburgh Steelers making a phone call to the Miami Dolphins was not nothing. I didn't think it was something, but I knew that it was not nothing. And here we are today. There's a lot that goes into this, okay? The biggest question before we start diving into Jalen Ramsey, where he's going to play, what it's going to look like, who the Pittsburgh Steelers can still go after, and obviously the same with Jonnu Smith. The bigger picture of this is the Pittsburgh Steelers are all in, right? That is, we had the conversation yesterday. I think they answered it for us about 45 minutes after we got out. This is it. The Pittsburgh Steelers are ready. They're Super Bowl or bust in 2025.
Truly. I mean, yeah, I think the term I used yesterday was all in adjacent. And they just took that term and blew it out of the water because they are all in, fully pedal to the metal. Do not stop. Do not look back. This team is trying to win a Super Bowl regardless of the costs, no matter how many, to quote the great Derek Zoolander, no matter how many people you leave dead and bloodied along the way, or no matter how many people you leave dead and bloodied along the way, they're going for it. They're all in, baby. So yeah, I was wrong, and I'm going to eat my crow as far as the Jalen Ramsey thing is concerned, because I had thought it could happen, sure, but I certainly did not think it was a realistic possibility, and I was very incorrect.
Yeah, no, that's look it. Nobody saw this coming. And when it comes to the Pittsburgh Steelers, I agree with you. They are all in. They're ready to go. This is Super Bowl or bust, which brings up a lot of questions about how all in can they be? How much does it screw them for the future if they recognize that the future is really not as bright as maybe we tried to hype it up to be just 24 hours ago with the Pittsburgh Steelers? Jalen Ramsey, we'll start with him before we dive into Jonnu Smith, comes here. The Pittsburgh Steelers have two starting corners. Those starting corners are Joey Porter Jr. and Darius Slay. Yeah, Jalen Ramsey could play in the nickel, and chances are he's going to play a decent bit in the nickel. But the Steelers don't always have a nickel back on the field, and Jalen Ramsey doesn't feel like a guy that you keep out there every 3 downs. That just doesn't feel like a Jalen Ramsey move. The outlook for him could go a number of ways. People are going to bring up safety and him being the next Charles Woodson and moving into that role. And I imagine that would be on the table for the Pittsburgh Steelers, surely. To be honest with you, I think that move would be awesome. I think it would be great for the Pittsburgh Steelers to swap Minkah for Jalen and just say, look, at Minkah wasn't getting the job done and he was costing a boatload of money. Maybe Jalen, especially removed from a cornerback role when he's not playing terribly, could take a step forward and be that superstar safety. The second one they landed from the Miami Dolphins, maybe at the same time, he is just a third guy, and he's going to, I would imagine, start on the outside over who is the big question. And then you have a 3-man rotation while he also plays the nickel. I also think it leaves the door open for another addition, and we'll get here into it in a minute. How do you see Jalen and his role with the Steelers this season?
Well, I think the initial instinct is for the Steelers to try to use him in a similar fashion to how they deployed Minkah Fitzpatrick whenever they first acquired him from the Miami Dolphins. And I think, yes, I love the comparison to, to Woodson in this transition to safety. I would love to just make sure that Jalen Ramsey is on the field. I don't think there is a 100% chance that he is the starting safety for the Steelers when the week 1 opens for the 2025 season. However, I would love to just make sure that Slay, Joey Porter Jr., and Ramsey are all on the field together for the majority of the Steelers' defensive snaps. So yes, I think he's going to be the nickel corner whenever they are deploying those packages. But for the most part, I would expect, and I would be surprised if I didn't see Jalen Ramsey as one of the first 11 members on the field for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah.
That being said, I don't think that means Darius Slay is going to be considered not a starter or a bench player or anything like that. I think we're going to have to get used to this idea of the Steelers secondary not having as defined positions on the depth chart and more free floating, more filling in different roles based off different packages and circumstances and things like that. So It's hard to predict right now, but I think they want to see Jalen Ramsey be a sort of floating wild card X factor sort of player that he was, as a former All-Pro and Pro Bowler.
I agree. I think that's the best way to do it. And if you are slowly transitioning him into safety, I'm totally cool with it. I also think that safety is the easiest position right now for the Pittsburgh Steelers to go out and get and to fix and to say, hey, we have a hole here. We just traded Minkah Fitzpatrick. Why don't we go out and get a different name that's a free agent? Because there are 3 pretty big ones out there, and one that makes a lot of sense for what the Pittsburgh Steelers are doing right now. You have 3 names. You wrote about them yesterday. That's Marcus Williams, Jordan Whitehead, Justin Simmons that are still on the market and available to be signed at safety. I think without argument, it is really hard to say Justin Simmons isn't the guy that the Pittsburgh, if you were picking between those 3, doesn't make the most sense for what the Steelers' goals are. They are all in. They do not care how old you are. They only care if you make them better this season. Justin Simmons does that. He makes them better this season. I think Justin Simmons has just enough maybe left in the tank to say maybe he could just be a guy that if you have a Jalen Ramsey, if you have a Darius Slay, if you have a Joey Porter Jr. and a Deshaun Elliott and a Juan Thornhill, that he is a piece that fits pretty well into that and makes your defensive secondary, your defensive backfield enough to say, there's upside here. If he kicks, awesome. If he's, 1-2 interception guy, still very much so enough. And the Steelers have an option there. To be honest, we could talk money all day and dive into, can they afford him? I don't know what they're doing financially. None of it makes any sense. None of it makes sense. I wouldn't have paid Jalen Ramsey all this money. Jonnu Smith's making $12 million with the Pittsburgh Steelers. There are questions about the finances, but I always trust Omar Khan to figure it out. What I do see is if you're going to get a safety, Justin Simmons makes the most sense. In my eyes, Justin Simmons is the guy to go get.
Yeah, I think he stands head and shoulders above the other 2 players that I mentioned in that piece that came out. I love Jordan Whitehead, and whenever he had that really, I forget the exact year, but he had a 4 interception year. He can create turnovers. He can be a good tackler. Is he on the same level as a Justin Simmons? No, but I think, beggars can't be choosers. If they are going to just fill another safety spot with a veteran that's available, they may have to pivot and they have to be at least open to that possibility. Marcus Williams, not really a strong option. He had a really hard 2024. The main reason I put him on that list was because I think it would be incredible for the Steelers to pluck a former starter from the Baltimore Ravens and have him have a resurgent year in Pittsburgh. So just for the the gigs on that one for the S&Gs on that one. But yeah, Justin Simmons is, he left Denver. He was with Atlanta for the 2024 season, but still had a pretty solid statistical year and showed that he has enough left in the tank to be a contributor. And I think would I like to have had Minkah Fitzpatrick as the starting safety alongside Deshaun Elliott with Jalen Ramsey also in the defense? 150%. Yes.
Yeah.
I think for their needs, Justin Simmons for the 2025 season would be the best fit, the best option, the best contributor for the Steelers defense. But
yeah,
will he come? I don't know if he's going to be actually in a Steelers uniform or even if the Steelers have him at the top of their target list now.
I agree with that, but I also think that he's a big name, and I agree with you. Like, I haven't heard a thing. You know what I mean? I haven't heard anything. But just connecting the dots here, if you got Justin or Jalen Ramsey, Jonnu Smith that you didn't even really need, but you went out and got him anyways. DK Metcalf, you got the quarterback in Aaron Rodgers. I mean, there is nothing the Pittsburgh Steelers have done that tells me anything other than if Justin Simmons is open to it, they're going to call him and say, you know what you should do? You should come play for the Pittsburgh Steelers. When it comes to the Minkah thing, because you touched on it, like, yeah, it would have been super nice for him to be in that backfield. But to be honest with you, I don't think the Steelers got worse in this trade. I really don't. Like, I think Jalen's a good player. I think Minkah's a good player as well. But I also think Minkah cost a boatload of money for no turnovers and was getting to a place where he was going to cost even more money. And the Steelers weren't ready for that. I mean, they have, at worst case scenario, an out with Jalen Ramsey after this season. That isn't great, but it's there. But I just think they look at it and say, they need change. Change needs to come. Minkah was a guy that just made sense and held value when they were ready to do it. So I agree it would have been nice, but if the option is there, I could definitely see them going after a Justin Simmons. I think I'd be more okay with, I like Marcus Williams more. I think Marcus Williams is a better player when he's good, but he wasn't good last year. I think Jordan Whitehead is very capable of being a safety 3. And while I don't think he, starts over Juan Thornhill, I do think that trio is okay. It's not the worst thing in the world, especially if Ramsey's going to play a little safety as well. But I think, Justin Simmons is a guy that keeps everything aligned, and I would make an offer to him tomorrow. Let's talk Jonnu Smith on the other side of this one. Mm-hmm. He comes to Pittsburgh. He's a tight end. Kaboli's saying he's going to play fullback. He's going to play wide receiver. He's going to play a little bit of everything. For $12 million, I'm going to be really honest with you. He might be a good tight end. He might have a relationship with Arthur Smith. I stick on the same wavelength that I stuck onto months ago, and that was, I'm sorry, but I don't think that really works out to be a wide receiver 2, and I don't think the Steelers should view it as a wide receiver 2. A good addition into the Jalen Ramsey, Minkah Fitzpatrick trade, certainly, whatever. But you can't bank, and unless you think otherwise, you can't bank on Jonnu being that guy and being like, okay, this is enough. If DK Metcalf did go down, if something were to happen, Jonnu Smith, Pat Freiermuth, Calvin Austin, Roman Wilson will save the day. That'll be enough. To me, it doesn't move the needle.
No, not at all. I can't help but to laugh at the sort of assertion or assumption that he would actually be the wide receiver 2. He's a great addition to the offense. The familiarity with Arthur Smith is a huge plus. But I was joking about this when I was talking about this with one of my cousins last night, just about the deals. And, he suggested maybe they're going to have to go to a 4 tight end set if DK Metcalf ever gets hurt, because that they're just loaded up on tight ends right now. So I think it's a great addition. I think it helps Darnell Washington maybe slot into a more favorable position on the depth chart to be used primarily in blocking situations and plays, which will just benefit the Steelers. It gives Aaron Rodgers another option, but let's not kid ourselves. He's not a wide receiver 2. I think this is just more propaganda. So we go into the season with no other wide receiver additions because we already have one in Jonnu Smith. So, I think it's just big Steelers media feeding us the propaganda.
Look, I'm going to be honest. We should have, and because you messed up. If we agreed on a bet, we had 45 minutes. You should have sent me something. Said, hey, you gotta. I don't even know. Shave the beard for a full month, which would have been disgusting. But I mean, I'm just saying you had, because there's no chance I'm doing it now. There's no chance.
Mhm.
If I had to guess, this is what it looks like going into at least the first preseason game. Now, I'm going to be honest. I don't think it's determined. Anybody who's sitting around going, oh, the Pittsburgh Steelers have their core. No, I'm not sold on that right now. They have their core today. Their core doesn't look good. That's what the Steelers have done here. The Steelers, and again, like I like Jonnu Smith. I think he's going to work out just fine. You know, he's in my overreactions here in 10 minutes. When the Steelers made this trade, what they said was there will be no rock or no stone unturned. There will be no hole in our team come 2025, week 1 of the regular season. So if the wide receiver position doesn't look great come week 2 of the preseason, you best believe they're going to start making phone calls. And they're going to say, yeah, whatever, man. We're giving up. We're just handing people things at this point. Doesn't matter what you are, as long as you could give us what we need. And that would be a wide receiver. So I would say right now, I agree with you. I think that's there. And I have faith in Roman and Calvin. And I think that could work out. But I also am very aware that if it sucks, they will make a move. You know, the Steelers, they really are there's no holding back. When it comes to this. I don't know. You look like you got thoughts to a reaction to my reaction.
No, I think I'm just so surprised because they're really, I did not think that they were going to be so all in, so bold enough. So, I thought that they would be a little too stubborn and, tepid and not sort of willing to do that action of turning over every stone. But the fact that they were willing to deal Minka when all signs pointed to them wanting to give him another chance, another shot to prove himself to be an elite safety. The fact that they, reversed immediately, and that tells me that there is nothing. All bets are off. Anything's on the table, and everything's on the table. So yeah, it's my thoughts are just. My evaluation of this team's offseason seems to have drastically altered and shifted in the matter of 24 hours.
It was a wild 24 hours. A wild 24 hours. So it was. I'll walk you through this is how my day happened as this unfolded. Just because for 5 seconds, just so everybody, and we got deep in wild 24 hours. I should have did this at the beginning of the show, to be honest with you. I got the news, came up from a cup of coffee, got the news. Holy shit. All right, jump on the laptop, take the laptop downstairs because I knew I had food cooking. So I was like, all right, I got to get down there. You know what I mean? Double task here. Minka comes out. Holy shit. Then I went to go grab a water, which is on our basement steps. Went to go get a water, look down the basement. Basement's flooded. I go, no chance, brother. As that happens, Jonnu Smith news comes out. And then it was just a roller coaster ride from there of sweeping water, fridge down in the basement was fried, then breaking news. It was a wild 24 hours. And let me tell you, I'm grateful for every second of it because it was a good day. It was a good day for the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's what I'm going to say. What might not be a good day, okay, is the day that TJ Watt potentially gets traded from the Pittsburgh Steelers and is on a different team. And Jerry Dulac said today on the Rich Eisen show that his clock striking midnight comes between week 1 of the regular season and the end of the preseason. That's when he says, maybe they've gone too far. He also says they are nowhere close to a deal. Everybody else is saying the same thing. After this one, does your thoughts, does your gut tell you anything different on if the Pittsburgh Steelers would be open to trading TJ Watt?
My gut, Noah, tells me that I am just not in control of this at all. My mind and my gut are telling me that, yeah, certainly now the door is open for a potential TJ Watt trade. I stand by, like I have with my other firm convictions about the wide receiver room, that they are going to ink TJ Watt to a massive extension. It's going to be for a lot of money. I didn't think Minka was a possibility to get traded 24 hours ago. How foolish am I? Because of course, maybe it's a possibility that TJ Watt gets traded and it's, maybe it was a 1% chance or a 2% chance, a day or two ago. Now it feels like a 10% chance, which is not a guarantee or even probable, but is very, very terrifying that has even progressed at all. But the way we are going right now, the Steelers are not, they're turning over every stone. So every option has to be considered.
I look at it and say, if the Pittsburgh Steelers do all of this and then don't have TJ Watt on the field in 2025, what in the actual hell were they thinking? Because you essentially just said, we're all into 2025, and then gave away your biggest piece, your best player, to say, we're like almost all the way in. We were like that close to being all the. No. Now there's a problem because TJ wants too much money, apparently, for too long. I have heard, and Dulac said this today, so I could actually say it out loud, that TJ wants a 5-year deal. And at that point, he's 36 years old. That's too old. That's too old. The problem is the Steelers look at a 3-year deal and say that's too expensive for a 3-year deal. It's a really tough situation. I'm not going to say, obviously you gotta leave a door cracked. You have to say the Steelers could pull this off. Do I think that they signed? Yeah, I think a deal still gets done. Would it be absolutely mind-blowing if they traded him? Yes, I think it would. Would it make no sense? None whatsoever. But the Steelers have made no sense this season. And if things get to a place and Omar Khan says, screw, we got no choice, man, let's do it. Now, I think a smarter move in their case is to just say, TJ, and this sucks. This sucks if they do this. TJ, you got to play this last year deal. There's no questions about it. And on top of that, we're just going to franchise tag you. That's what we're going to do. Yeah. Well, yeah, right? Which would be, you want to talk morale killer.
They cannot do that.
There has to be an outlet. And I think that if the Steelers don't get their way, that is the next possible outcome of this. Which is why, right?
Wow.
What upsets you more, if they trade him or franchise tag him?
Franchise tag him. Just trade him. That seems almost petty to a fault if they were to make him play the last year of his deal and then franchise tag him. Yes. Is it within their right as an organization? Technically, yes. Would it make them look like the worst run team in the NFL? Also 100% yes. So if that's the plan, if there's no other way forward, you got to trade them at this point. You got to get rid of them. I think it would be stupid to do so, but oh my gosh, I think it would be the stupidest thing in the world to franchise tag the greatest defender in, of this era for the Steelers.
I was going to say second greatest, arguably the second greatest player to ever come through the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Right. And you're just at 32, you're like, you know what? You've done so well. You've won Defensive Player of the Year. You put up sacks year after year. Franchise tag.
Yeah.
Like,
worst year you've had as a professional, still Defensive Player of the Year finalist. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. I agree. Look, I think it makes no sense, but I also think that they're really, really stuck right now. I will say it's last case scenario for TJ Watt to end up anywhere. I think that is the worst possible outcome for the Steelers. And I also think it's the last thing they would do is say, look, we've exhausted all options. TJ's got to go. And I think it would be wild to do it, but I don't think they're on good terms right now. And that is not great. It's not great. It's not great for the Pittsburgh Steelers. All right. Let's round this one off with a fantastic Overreaction Tuesday, because I'm going to be honest, like yesterday was nuts. And I don't know about you. Maybe it's just me. I was also told I say, let's be honest too much. So I have to stop saying that. But I don't know if it's you or if it hits you the same way that it hit me. But yesterday gave me such a boost of like, we're back. You know what I mean? Like it was the first time I was like, football, there are things to talk about. I'm ready. Like it felt nice. You know what I mean? It was a really good awakening on June 30th of all freaking days. Absolutely wild. With that said,
truly,
let's get into some Overreaction Tuesdays.
It's a fine line between, drinking wine and squashing grapes, as we say in this business. And sometimes it's very subtle.
Sometimes it is very subtle. Jacob, the Pittsburgh Steelers got rid of Minka Fitzpatrick. Why? Because he wasn't turning the ball over. There weren't the scoop and scores, the pick sixes, the interceptions as a whole. I mean, great. Yeah, pick the ball off against Baltimore in a game that you ended up losing. Fantastic. That sounds really, really helpful. Yeah, Jalen Ramsey is the reason that they said this needs to be a change. And with that, the spark will come. Jalen Ramsey's still a good football player. I truly believe that. And a lot of people are down on him. I'll tell you this. I'm not down on Jalen Ramsey. I think Jalen Ramsey's got a lot left in the tank here at 30 years old. Jalen Ramsey, overreaction or not, will have 5 or more interceptions in 2025.
Ooh, okay. Wow. Early, I'm going to have to strike down the optimism and go overreaction. I think there's going to be turnovers.
Okay.
I think Jalen Ramsey is going to, have a better statistical year than last year in Miami. More than 5, buddy. I hate to be so pessimistic immediately, but that's got to be an overreaction for me. I would maybe even, if you said 4, I'd be like, yeah, you know what? I'm jazzed up. Let's go for it. But 5, that's a big ask, even for a former All-Pro like Jalen Ramsey. So I unfortunately have to go overreaction right off the bat. My apologies.
I love it. 5 or more. I don't know, man. I'm in on Jalen Ramsey. I think I'm fired up about Jalen Ramsey, to be honest with you. Like Minkah, I was fired up about Minkah. Sometimes I think just a change of pace, just come on over to a different team and see what happens. And I just think it's gonna work. We're gonna stick with Jalen Ramsey here because look, he might not have 5 interceptions in 2025. Maybe that's not the case. But at the end of the day, when this is all said and done, people are talking about who won this trade. It will be the Pittsburgh Steelers. Why? Because Jalen Ramsey this season is going to make the move to safety and is going to be a more exciting safety this season than Minkah Fitzpatrick.
Now you got me good here. I do not think this is an overreaction. I think this is much more likely than the 5 interceptions. Truly, and maybe this is an overreaction. I don't think it would be crazy to say that we are probably done seeing the elite version of Minkah Fitzpatrick now that he is going back to the Miami Dolphins. Doesn't give me a lot of hope for him to be down there. That being said, yeah, I have no idea what the plan is for Jalen Ramsey, as I've sort of already alluded to. I think he's going to be all over the field, but I could certainly see them being like, you know what, you're going to thrive here at the safety position. You can force turnovers. You can be in the box when you want to. Yeah, I think we could see him thrive there and be a much more impactful safety than Minkah Fitzpatrick this year. So is it what I bet on it? Probably not today, but not an overreaction at all. I think that is well within bounds.
I love it. We're going to keep it trucking here, but the other side of the football and the newest former Arthur Smith addition to the offense, Jonnu Smith, is coming here off his best season in the NFL, his first Pro Bowl. And people say, oh, well, he's never had more than 500 and blank yards with Arthur Smith. All right, well, that means he's never had more than 500 blank yards in the NFL outside of last season. This year is going to be different, okay? At the end of the day, when everything's said and done in 2025, Jonnu Smith's coming in here because Arthur Smith thinks he's a stud. And the Steelers think they're going to use him all over the place. They handed him $12 million to say, we have a lot of faith in you to be the guy that can fill the shoes of the wide receiver 2 that we need. And with that said, at the end of the year, Jonnu Smith's going to have better numbers, and I hate to say this, than Pat Freiermuth.
Noah, why? Why are you doing this to me, buddy? That is not an overreaction either. And it pains me as much as I'm sure it pained you to think of that and to say it. It was because rough. This is a huge Pat podcast. Huge. I think just as high as Arthur Smith is on Jonnu Smith, I am on Pat Freiermuth in terms of what I think he's capable of and the type of player he is and person he is on the field. Jonnu Smith, they brought him in a year after they give Pat Freiermuth all of this money via extension.
Yes, sir.
It tells me that they are looking for something more. Do I buy that he's a wide receiver too? No, not at all. Do I buy that they maybe want more production out of the tight end position because it might make their new 41-year-old quarterback a little bit more comfortable, a little bit more happy, a little happier? Yeah, for sure. So I could see him forming a connection with Rodgers pretty early on. Maybe, I don't think it's as likely that both he and Freiermuth form a connection that is that strong with Rodgers. So yeah, it's possible that Jonnu Smith is a tight end 1 in production by the end of 2025. Not an overreaction.
Love it. I mean, I hate it, but
yeah, hate it. But
I love it. I'm 2-1 right now, and I'm feeling pretty good. But things are going to get hot real quick. The Pittsburgh Steelers, they have shown their cards this season. This is it. This is Super Bowl or bust for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And to get to the Super Bowl, you got to beat the teams that we talked about time and time again. The Kansas City Chiefs, the Buffalo Bills, and the Baltimore Ravens. I don't know if they get through them all. I have no idea. And that's not what I'm saying here. What I'm saying, though, is the Steelers have finally done it. They finally hit a place where I feel good saying this out loud. The Pittsburgh Steelers, if faced in the playoffs to do this, can beat at least one of those three, the Chiefs, the Bills, and the Ravens this postseason.
Not an overreaction again.
Let's go.
I don't think anything, one of these things, I think only one of these things, but the other three things that you've said so far have been very much in line, very much within bounds, very much possible for the Steelers in 2025. Am I 100% confident on them being a Super Bowl contender? No, still not the best, still not the favorite in the AFC. But do I think, a motivated, resurgent Jalen Ramsey as a difference maker and turnover creator for the Steelers defense, combined with a rejuvenated offense, can lead to one or two impressive victories in the playoffs? Yeah, I think that possibility has improved. And I think I take my chances on Baltimore. That AFC North rivalry is, who knows what happens. The Steelers could grab a win from them whenever. Excuse me. But yeah, I think not an overreaction again. I think they could beat one or maybe two.
I love it. Or maybe two, he goes. All right. Well, this last one's big. I'm not going to lie. This last one does it for me. The Pittsburgh Steelers have shown their hand. Okay. Once again, I'll start it the same way. The Pittsburgh Steelers have said, our hat is in the ring. Just like you said, they could beat one, maybe more of those teams. They are real Super Bowl contenders. Let's be honest. Maybe it's fake real Super Bowl contenders. Maybe it's just like, this is maybe looks cool on paper. I don't know. But the Pittsburgh Steelers, if you put this much effort into an offseason, I will say you have a shot to pull off something crazy. Would I bet on you? No. But do I think you could pull off something crazy? Yeah. Here's the thing. The Pittsburgh Steelers, they're here. They're ready. They have put everything they have into the season. And until this moment, the Steelers have felt it almost as if there was no pressure to get better, to break the mold, to relinquish the playoff nonsense that has happened over the last 8 seasons. This year has been different. That means there's pressure. That means that the Steelers are feeling the pressure. Well, nobody's going to feel it more than Mike Tomlin. If this doesn't work out, Steelers do all this and fail. Mike Tomlin is officially, for the first time in his career, on the hot seat.
Oh, Noah, I am right. I am in the same boat with you again, my friend. Yeah, I mean, this season, what I can confidently say, if this season ends like 2024 did, if this season ends like 2023, God forbid, or anything like that, if this season ends any other way besides in the, let's call it AFC Championship.
Yep.
Oh, if they get to the divisional round, we'll talk.
Yeah. You lose to Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City in the divisional round. There's an excuse to be made.
Exactly. Agreed 100%. Outside of that, if you end this season, 9-8, losing the wild card round, this is an abject failure in a way other seasons did not feel like for Mike Tomlin, because again, there has never been such an aggressive sort of push for this all-in mentality in such a brand new way in the Steelers organization. So yeah, if they don't achieve the goal or at least get marginally close, I think Tomlin, you have to think about where he stands within the organization, because he also was clearly a driving force in promoting this new sort of mindset and approach for the 2025 season. So yeah, not an overreaction at all, bud. Not an overreaction at all.
Love it. I hate it, but I love it. What could be if the Pittsburgh Steelers do not do something better than what they've done in years past after doing all this? it is a colossal failure for the organization overall, head to toe. There are questions about if Omar Khan is good enough to do this or if he's too big of a risk taker. And there are questions about whether or not Mike Tomlin is a good NFL head coach anymore. Those are all on the table. Will it happen? We'll see. But I'm excited. I appreciate that one. I appreciate you guys on another great Overreaction Tuesday. With that said, that's everything on our agenda. Let's start diving into all of your questions. If you got them, toss them in the chat. On the other side of this break, I also want to talk about this golf shirt from Chubby's that I think we're going to give away this week. So we'll be right back with some good news.
Pittsburgh, this one's for you. From the voices behind all Steelers talk comes Black and Gold apparel, your go-to for bold, fan-driven merch that reps the city, the Steelers, and everything in between. Whether you bleed black and gold or just love that Pittsburgh grit, we've got something for you. It's more than a podcast. It's a community. And thanks to your support, we're proud to bring the passion from our mics to your closets. Gear up, stand out, and show the world what real fans look like. Shop now at blackandgoldapparel.myshopify.com.
Alrighty. Shout out to our members. Shout out to our super chatters. It's a good one. Appreciate all you guys as always. Make sure you're calling in to tomorrow's call-in show. We need them, and I'm very excited for it. We'll start with Dustin here, new member. Appreciate you. Make sure you're calling into tomorrow's show. Maximus, we got offered 2 first-round picks for TJ Watt. If we got offered 2 first-round picks for TJ Watt, do you trade him? Personally, I would. I still don't see us winning a Super Bowl with our quarterbacks, maybe a playoff win. I say stack high picks for younger talent. 2 first-round picks for TJ Watt. I'm going to be honest. I just said I wasn't gonna say that much this episode, and here we are. I just can't get it out of the vocabulary. You know what I'm saying? It's my It's my
It's a filler word. It's okay. No one's judging you here. This is
like
it's
a 6-second filler
buddy.
phrase. It's a 6-second filler. It takes up a lot of time. I would have a hard time saying the Steelers would say no to 2 first-round picks. I don't know if I would personally. I think TJ, if you're all in for this season, I think TJ Watt should retire a Steeler. And maybe I'm a little bit biased when I say that because I just feel that I'm pro player enough to want these guys to be done right.
Mm-hmm.
I have a hard time saying the Steelers would turn down 2 first-round picks for TJ Watt because I don't think they'd get that offer. And if they did, like, you got to have a conversation about it. You have to.
Right. I mean, at this point, the value is that's absurd because if the going rate for a former All-Pro, safety or cornerback pick Ramsey or Minka Fitzpatrick for this instance, the going rate is just another player. It's not necessarily a huge draft pick, a very expensive draft pick. So, yeah, if some team comes a calling with that right now, you have to consider it. Do I want to take it? No, because at this point, still, the all-in mentality has to include having a former defensive player of the year on the edge rush. You have to consider it, though, for sure. Have to have the conversation.
You have to. I think they would. Would I personally? No, but I think they would. Smooty Booty here. Smootus, excuse me. If they trade TJ Watt, I'm an Eagles fan. I think that is the sentiment across many. Here's an interesting one. Cody Silva. Omar fleeced the Dolphins. Do you think they I'm going to be honest. I think they won the trade. I do think they won the trade. Time will tell if they really won the trade, but I think they won the trade. Like I like Jalen Ramsey. I like Minka Fitzpatrick and I like Jonnu Smith, but you got 2 players that are pretty good for a guy who's also pretty good, and I don't care about long-term because if we're going to be realistic, Minka had 1 more season with the Pittsburgh Steelers. That was it. Next year, he was getting traded. So you had 1 good year. I think I'm okay with it. I do.
I'm going to be honest. Whenever I thought it was like as the pieces of the trade, the actual details were coming in, when it was just for about 20 minutes or 15 minutes, just like Jalen Ramsey for Minka Fitzpatrick, I was like, I don't understand this trade at all. But then when you look at the totality of the trade, getting Jonnu Smith and Jalen Ramsey, plus you're getting, I think it's a 7th round pick coming our way and a 5th round to Miami in the same draft year, 27, I believe.
Yes.
But whatever the case was, that's a fantastic trade. Fleeced is, I don't know if any GM truly gets fleeced in the NFL, but pretty good trade for the Steelers. I think
I'm going to be honest.
Got a lot of value.
32 for Chase Claypool was a fleece. That was
no, okay, you're right. You proved me wrong.
Omar
That was
has
that was
done
a
this
fleece.
before. That was a fleece. That was a fleece. I think they won the trade. I will. A fleece.
Mhm.
I think it's almost as fair of a trade as I've ever seen. I think the Steelers came out on top just for their situation. You know what I mean? Like the Dolphins to me just got Minka Fitzpatrick, and you could make an argument on their side, but I don't know their side. Coleslaw here, aka Berg fan. Appreciate you finishing the duo here. We're gonna have to come up with more. What's up, AST Nation? Congrats to Seaman Buddhist, 20 years retired Army guy here. Shout out to my brothers macaroni salad and potato salad. I hope Jay is okay after the Minka trade. What a comment here from Coleslaw, aka Berg fan. Appreciate you as always, my guy. Shout out to macaroni salad. Shout out to potato salad as always, our dude. Good old Seaman. And hey, happy 4th of July to everybody as we approach the 4th. And thank you. Special thank you for your service, my friend. Cole, I don't know what to say. Coleslaw, Berg fan. I love them both, to be honest. Grace and the Ginger. Hey, Noah, why do quote unquote analysts on ESPN say that the Steelers can't beat the Ravens or the Bengals? The Steelers always split those series, if not sweep. Dan Graziano, okay? And I hate to name guys by name.
Called him out there, Noah.
Yeah, I had to, though. Like, I had to. Said, I think today, maybe yesterday, that Minka Fitzpatrick, that the Steelers lost this trade because Minka Fitzpatrick is the heart and soul of the Steelers defense. And I immediately said to myself, no, he's not. He's not even close, to be honest. It is TJ Watt by about 3 miles. Then it's Cam Hayward.
Bingo.
And then you got a pretty big gap once again, and then it's Minka Fitzpatrick. Because if Minka misses 5 games, it's a bummer. You know, it's not great. If TJ misses 5 games, you're in full straight panic. You don't know what's going. You are totally scared of what those 5 games are going to bring. If Cam misses 5 games, you're thinking about it quite a bit. Like the conversation of how bad things are going to. If Minka missed 5 games, the conversation would be like, can Juan Thornhill be good? Can he be good enough? You know? Like, that's not the conversation everywhere else.
No, you're
it's
right.
not even close. So I don't. There's some national media that I just I always go local. That's all. If I need something about someone, I go local because they know, you know, they're there. They got real answers. They'll tell you exactly what you need to hear. National guys, man. They look good. But I'm going to be honest. I don't wear a tie to work every day, and I think I give better takes.
Can I ask you a question, Noah, before we move on to our next good one in the comments? Do you think it's possible that, like, the further we get removed from this trade, maybe the more negative things we hear about Minka Fitzpatrick? I'm not trying to speculate on a person or anything like that, or even trying to, I'm just curious because the Dan Graziano thing, if anyone saw my reaction to you saying that, like, it's obvious that Minka Fitzpatrick was not the heart and soul of the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. Very important core member. Absolutely.
For sure.
Not the leader of the defensive locker room. And I'm curious, you've been covering the team for a few years now. You've been in the locker room. I trust what you were saying, again, local news and local sources and stuff like that. Is it possible that, like, we hear more, like, breakups like George Pickens, right? Like there's always crazy things that get thrown out afterwards, but is it possible that we hear more about, like, the Steelers, being better off without Minka? I, again, don't want to make any accusations or cast aspersions, but the question's in my mind right now.
I don't think that, because you were texting me yesterday trying to dig your way into a conspiracy theory, and I was like, I just had to keep shutting them down. Like, I don't think these are real. Something could come out, but if I'm going to be honest with you, like, Minka's a very quiet professional guy. Like, Minka is a guy that shows up to work. He's going to work all day long. Then he's going to leave, and he's going to come back tomorrow and he's just going to work all day long. He's not a problems guy. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, he fist fought Chase Claypool at practice one day. It was the coolest thing I've ever seen. Not that I want anybody to fist fight, but it was just like it was nuts. We're talking bleachers cleared, dude. I could still hear Cam slowly walking his way over to this fight, just going, "You just knock it the F off." And I was like, oh my God, this is so. There were moments, but no, I don't think that. I honestly think it came down to money. Like, I think that At the end of this, it's all money, and that they just viewed it and said, we need better production for the same amount of profit here, or the same amount of return on interest, and we're not getting it. And, Jalen's a different option. That's kind of how I view it.
Here's the only thing I need to push back on in that one regard is that, like, I agree with you that there was not a bang for the Steelers buck in terms of Minka's salary the past 2 seasons, but by the same measure, can't you say the same thing about Jalen Ramsey coming off
Agreed.
of the lowest interception totals, and then they gave him more money?
I agree.
I'm just like curious as to, I'm like, was that solely it? And then, yes, am I digging? Do I want there to be something juicier, something more dramatic hidden underneath? Yeah, of course I do, man. That's what we talk about on here.
This is our life. I agree.
Something about the money thing doesn't compute, doesn't make sense for me. So I'm just like Charlie Day, like I was texting you, and It's Always Sunny, just being like, there's something here,
Look, I think, like, you never know, but I have not heard anything. I never heard anything about Minka like being a problem ever. So it would just surprise me, but things come. He's not George. You know what I mean? He's not George. That's not a real thing. But can he? I don't think he's Deontay either. And you'll never see the issues in Miami that these other guys are going to have. But can something come out where like there was a rift or something? Or I definitely think that's a possibility. I wouldn't bank on it, but I do think it's a possibility for sure. For sure. Broderick Wallace here. Shout out my guy. Is wide receiver 2 less of a factor when you have DK paired with 2 tight end ones and a cerebral, quarterback 1 in Rodgers? James Jones said that 12 personnel was a favorite during his time with Aaron in Green Bay. 2 tight ends, 2 wide receivers, 1 running back in the backfield. I'll say that if everybody's healthy, I like the offense. I think it could work. I do. Like, you have 2 tight ends that could be reliable. You have 2 running backs that you trust. Jaylen Warren can catch the football out of the backfield. Kenneth Gainwell can catch the football out of the backfield. You still have a Cordero Patterson. I know, I'm sorry, but you still have a Cordero Patterson. I like Calvin Austin, and maybe Roman Wilson turns out to be good. Like maybe you give him a shot. So I think it could work, but I think the second that DK, and that's your biggest factor here, is DK. The second that DK, and if something were to happen, like, he's in trouble. The Steelers are in trouble. So I do think it could work. I still like going to get a wide receiver 2. Even if it's not a big name wide receiver 2, if you end up with Gabe Davis, it just gives you another guy just in case. And I like just in case. I do. Do I think a Chris Olave is better? Definitely. And the only reason I think that's still on the table is because the Steelers have shown they don't care. They're doing whatever they need to do to build this team and make it fantastic. And if Chris Olave is available, they're going to go get him. So I won't rule it out. I think this offense could work, though. Like, I do think that on paper, this offense could work. Do I think it's the best offense possible? No, I don't. But I do think it could work. Like, I do think they have enough pieces where I'm finally at a place where I'm comfortable to say you could still succeed with this group of guys. We don't have to ignore anything.
Yeah, I think I am almost fully in agreement with you. I think the thought I had at the end of what you were saying there is the acquisition of Jonnu Smith like actually cement that Cordero Patterson will be not only on the roster, but like a part of the offensive plan in 2025, because maybe the wide receiver 2 was with us all along, folks. Because I just don't know. I would like to see them run a big, heavy offense, especially with 2 tight ends that they seem to trust. But there's still some pieces missing on this offense, and it's the wide receiver.
Yeah, I fully agree here. Cody Silva, they need to blitz Ramsey like they did with Deshae Townsend. I've been dying, for the LeBeau cornerback. I don't know why I'm tripping up on words right now. Cornerback to blitz and mess up an offensive game plan. Big Ben pushed for this real hard. I think Jalen blitzing is huge. It's the first time in a while the Pittsburgh Steelers have had a corner that they could send off the nickel and say, go get somebody, have a good time. This is going to be awesome. So I would say yes for this. I think that's the best part of Jalen Ramsey is the physicality that he brings to a corner position for the first time where he can move around, and they could do different creative things with him. I think they wanted to do that with Minka. I don't think it was working. I think they're going to try to do it with Jalen. Hopefully it works, but I do think that that's a possibility.
Yeah, I do think that Ramsey has a really strong opportunity to endear himself to, that desire for the Steelers defense to be like make these splash plays, not necessarily turnovers, but yeah, he has shown to be an effective blitzer from different places on the field. So if they can get him involved, or they can get creative enough, and depending on where they want him to play for the majority of his time, I would love to see him try to get after the quarterback, because I think he's, one, effective, and two, it'll just sort of help create turnovers, help put the defense back into that elite, turnover machine that we're all dying for them to be.
It's been a long time. I'm not even going to guess. Pontian Trans Am. Excuse me. Sorry. Do you think our defensive coordinator, Terrell Austin, is good enough to use everyone the best, or is he the weak link for our defense? So I think it needs to be very known once again. And this is a good time to stress this, that Mike Tomlin is the defensive caller of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And he always has been. And any defensive, these guys are not doing well, blame. The development you could put on the assistant coaches and the coordinators and that kind of stuff. If it's a bad defensive game plan, that's on Mike Tomlin. So I get worried that TA, shoulders all the blame, and maybe he deserves some of it, but it is Mike Tomlin's defense, and it always has been Mike Tomlin's defense. I don't know if Mike Tomlin's good enough to call that defense. I'm going to be really honest. Has he shown you anything in the last couple of years that says Mike Tomlin's an elite defensive play caller? No, he hasn't. So I need to see that this season. He's got a better defense than he's had in a long time. If no injuries happen, I don't think he's a weak link. I think he could be a strong link for the Steelers and their defense. But I think it comes down to Mike Tomlin, not TA.
Yeah. It's so funny because the national reputation, talking about national media versus local media and sort of our interpretations of things, the national reputation for Tomlin, is still that he is this defensively superb and elite, better than the rest of the league coach. And yes, that was how he climbed up the ladder from the college ranks, up until he got his head coaching job with the Steelers. But over the last couple of years, the overwhelming sort of narrative emerging is this Steelers defense is good, always has the potential to be better, but cannot find a way to consistently display it and perform at that level throughout the entire season. There's only been one person in charge of the defensive structure, systems, and overseeing those ones being used and deployed. And that's Mike Tomlin. So I'm not saying he's a bad defensive coach, but I do think that trepidation, that call for concern is warranted at this point, because it's not just on Terrell Austin. It's not just on anyone else who's in the coordinator position. They have to work within the confines of a Mike Tomlin defense. And maybe we've just seen that is limiting in some ways that you can't overcome.
I agree. ND Joe here. There are trips wide receiver formations out there. Are there trip tight end formations? If not, I'm sure Arthur Smith has to be formulating something close to this. Tell me if I'm crazy here. I think Darnell Washington could be a guy that's on the move this summer after this trade.
Really?
I mean, why not?
Crazy for suggesting it, but I don't think it's crazy to suggest the move. Do you think there's an interest for him across the league? I think he might be one of those players who, within, the fans, the people who see him very often, he generates a ton of excitement and buzz. But does that carry outside of Pittsburgh? I don't know.
I don't know either, but I do think that he has more trade value than Connor Hayward. And if the Steelers are looking to move on from somebody, maybe they move on from the guy that they could actually trade away and get something for.
Agreed with that.
Maybe that's Darnell Washington. Yeah. He's entering up on, this is year 3. You got to sign him to a contract extension next year. Are you gonna? Probably not. No. I wouldn't imagine so. I don't think I'm going to predict it, but I would say if somebody said who would be a guy that gets traded after this, Darnell would be the name that I would put out there. I do.
Interesting.
Yeah, we'll see. But I do think that you could get something for him. Heard at practice, are the Steelers set up for a great defense -1 hole and an unstoppable short yardage game? T-clock, why with very limited splash play ability? Yes, this is actually exactly it. Like, this is their formula for the season. I'm not sold that they're going to be in love with that formula once they see it on the field in training camp and the preseason, but they will tweak it if they need to. But yeah, it is, how long could we have the football? How minimal mistakes can we make? Can Aaron Rodgers be a guy that is good enough for all of this? And can our defense be elite? Like, that's their game plan. And will it work? I don't really know. I don't really know.
That's such a lofty expectation and such a precarious position to put your team into. So I agree that that's probably the mentality going into the year, but I think it has very strong potential, a very strong likelihood even to have a really bad side effect quickly. So we'll see. We'll see. That I don't love hearing that. That's for sure.
No, I don't either, but it is what their offense, their entire roster is gamed around is how good can our defense be, and our offense needs to protect the football. Like, that's what needs to happen. Is it going to be good enough? I don't know. You know, I have a hard time believing that no big play potential is good enough, but I also don't think the Steelers have had a quarterback as good as Aaron Rodgers since Ben left. And what does that do, you know, for this group? Is he the missing piece? We'll see. We'll find out. Justin Gordon, unfortunately, I think this is it for the offense. I don't see us getting a premier wide receiver 2 or 1B. 12 million tight end plus 12 million tight end equals 24 million top tier wide receiver 2. This move makes Amari Cooper look a lot better and grab Justin Simmons. I agree with you on the Justin Simmons. Do you think it opens the door for a free agent over, if you were to guess, because I know you don't expect one to come, but if you were to guess, wide receiver our trade versus free agent signing, what way would you lean after this if you did think they were adding somebody?
Yeah, I think free agency seems like almost a guaranteed way that they will address this hole. Obviously, I could be so wrong, and there could be another blockbuster trade brewing as soon as we get done with this podcast. Who knows? But I think that Gabe Davis, Amari Cooper, you know, someone like that does make a ton more sense. And I think the Steelers have maybe left themselves less wiggle room to do anything else but go out and get a vet minimum contract to fill in that position. So yeah, I think free agency is the route I think I see them going.
I agree. I think it's much more likely free agent than a trade at this point, just because of money. I think Amari Cooper will be cheap. I think Keenan Allen be cheap. I think Gabe Davis would be cheap. And if that's the case, I think that's the way they're going to go. I don't think it works well, but I also, like, I think at the end of the day, if you end up Jonnu Smith, Pat Freiermuth, Calvin Austin, Roman Wilson, Amari Cooper, and DK Metcalf, I'm not like overly impressed with that group. I'm much more impressed with DK, Pat Freiermuth, Calvin Austin, Roman Wilson, Chris Olave. Like, Darnell Washington as tight end too. Like, I'm much more impressed with that. So I don't know if that's the cat just dove bomb behind you. Boo.
He's terrifying, man. He's too quick.
He's all over. He's a street cat. He knows what's up. But I'm not totally impressed with that outcome, but I think it's more likely. I do. Grayson the Ginger here. How much time do you think it'll take for all these new pieces to click together? There has been so much change on both sides of the ball this season. Do you think training camp's enough time?
Yes. I don't think team chemistry, or this might be a better way to phrase it, I don't think team chemistry and sort of like pieces clicking and stuff like that is as big of a concern in football, because the roles are, I feel, and Noah, correct me if I'm wrong, so much more sort of clearly defined. Like in other sports, like in the NHL, for example, because that's something I'm much more familiar with, like some players are superstars. You know, Brad Marchand gets traded from the Boston Bruins to the Florida Panthers, becomes a role player. Like, it's very rare that you talk to a team, you're used to playing this one type of way, or a sort of providing a certain thing, and then they say, you know what you're going to do? You're going to play defensive line now because we just think that's going to help the team. So I think that enough time to just sort of build a little bit of camaraderie, a little bit of getting to know one another, making sure the communication and language that the defense and offense are using is all, together and everybody's on the same page. That's plenty. So yeah, training camp is enough for me. I don't think I need to see them, work in progress over training camp and the preseason to see them come together. I think once they start playing games, it'll look fine. And then it might look slightly disjointed, but I don't think it's going to take very long for them to come together.
I agree. I think that this is a group of veterans that have played with different people many times. And I think the rookies had a chance to adapt. I think Aaron is a professional. He's done this before. They'll get extra time this summer. I just think it's going to work. Like, I think these guys are good enough. This isn't an offensive line. It is a secondary, and you do need to gel in the secondary. I agree with that. But I also think these guys are good enough to, this isn't a bunch of newbies. Like, this is veterans. These guys have done this before in different teams. So I have a lot of faith that it could work out come training camp. We'll finish it off with the Sada Burrito here. Noah, I'm in a very similar situation as you. My dogs are named Renegade and Minka. I've been using Simmons instead of Minka, and she likes it better than Whitehead. Would you agree this is the way to go? I will say that if you started walking around calling your dog Whitehead, it might be weird. Okay, let's start there. It's just a strange name for a dog, and I think she gets that. I think she's looking at you going like, I don't know what this is, man, but you got to stop. Okay, let's not.
Don't call your dog Pimple. I know who we're referencing with Whitehead here, but don't do that. Don't do that. Simmons is good. Simmons is great. Simmons is better.
And your dog knows what's up. Your dog knows exactly what's up. It's Justin Simmons. It's Justin. Even if you called her Justin, which would be weird for a girl, but whatever. It's 2025. Anything could happen. I like it. Steelers unluckiest reindeer. Steelers prediction. This is an awful one. Rodgers gets hurt week 15 at 8-7, making the Steelers put in GOAT number 2. We end up losing the wild card at 10-7. That would suck. And I think that it puts. Is that a big enough excuse for Mike Tomlin to not be on the hot seat? To go back to our overreactions. It is, yes, right? It is. It is. And I think it would. I think if that was the case, which would stink, I think Mike Tomlin is clear, and you go into another season with Mike T and say, yeah, well, Rodgers got hurt week 15. What are you going to do about it?
Mm-hmm.
You can do a lot.
Exactly.
All right. Enigma After Dark, DK, Calvin Austin, Jonnu, Jalen, all big playability around. I agree. I just don't think that, like, Jalen's big play, but he's a running back. So not a bunch of big play in the passing game. DK's big play for sure. Calvin's big play, but low productivity. I don't think Jonnu's a big play guy, but Jonnu's, reliable, sturdy tight end. I think you have minimal big play potential, but I still think you have it for sure. It's all right, because last year there was minimal big play potential and zero anything else. It was just, can George Pickens catch a deep ball? If not, there's nothing we can do. So at least now there's, all right, if we have to be, methodical and really work our way down the field, that's an option. And we could do that most times. And then that one time where DK is going 60, awesome. That's great. So I think that's the biggest change from last year is that, yeah, it's still limited big playability, but it's a lot more options. And there are other options around that big playability that were not there a year ago for the Pittsburgh Steelers, unless you're running 3 yards with Najee Harris, which no. It ain't it. It ain't it. All right. With that said, guys, we're heading out of here. Thank you guys so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Check us out anywhere you get your podcasts. And as always, find all of our work at si.com/NFL/Steelers. With that said, we will be back tomorrow. Enjoy another beautiful day in the Berg. Peace.